Ryan Giggs spent most of his adult life being held up as a model of sporting excellence. To generations of football fans, he was the ultimate Manchester United professional, loyal to one club, relentlessly successful, seemingly disciplined, and almost mythically consistent over more than 2 decades at the top of the game. Yet, as his playing career faded into history, the image that replaced it was far messier, darker, and deeply uncomfortable. What emerged was not a single scandal, but a long, tangled trail of personal betrayals, legal battles, and public controversies that have permanently altered how Giggs is remembered. For years, Giggs's private life was carefully hidden behind the glow of trophies and honors. That illusion shattered spectacularly when it emerged that he had conducted a long-running affair with his brother Rodri's wife. The relationship reportedly lasted for years and became public knowledge in the early 2010s, triggering widespread outrage. This was not a fleeting lapse or a tabloid exaggeration. It was a sustained betrayal that fractured his family and horrified fans who had grown up idolizing him. Even years later, his brother publicly condemned him, and the episode became one of the most infamous personal scandals ever associated with a Premier League footballer. For many, it was the moment when the idea of Giggs as a role model collapsed entirely. That scandal alone damaged his reputation, but it was only the beginning. During later legal proceedings, Giggs himself admitted under oath that he had a long-standing reputation for infidelity and that he had never been faithful in his relationships, including during his marriage. This admission was not dragged out by tabloids, but spoken directly in a courtroom, reinforcing the image of a man whose private conduct consistently contradicted the disciplined, respectful persona he presented to the public throughout his playing career. The most serious controversies of Giggs's life erupted in November 2020, when police were called to his home following reports of a domestic incident involving his then-partner, Kate Greville. Giggs was arrested and questioned on suspicion of assault. The news sent shockwaves through British football, particularly because Giggs was, at the time, the manager of the Wales national team and a figure regularly described as a national sporting hero.
In April 2021, the situation escalated dramatically when prosecutors formally charged Giggs with assault causing actual bodily harm against Greville and with controlling and coercive behavior over a 3-year period. He was also charged with assaulting Greville's younger sister during the same incident. The charge of coercive control was especially significant, as it alleged a sustained pattern of psychological and emotional abuse rather than a single moment of violence. Prosecutors claimed Giggs exercised control over Greville's movements, communications, and personal autonomy, accusing him of intimidation, manipulation, and repeated harassment. When the case went to trial in 2022, the details laid bare in court were deeply damaging to Giggs' public image. Jurors heard allegations of aggressive arguments, possessive behavior, and abusive messages sent during the breakdown of the relationship. Greville alleged that Giggs had headbutted her during an argument, while her sister claimed he struck her with his elbow while trying to intervene. Messages read in court were described as threatening and emotionally abusive, painting a picture of a volatile and controlling relationship far removed from the calm professionalism fans associated with Giggs. Giggs denied all allegations of violence and coercive behavior. He acknowledged being unfaithful and flawed in relationships, but insisted he had never physically harmed a woman. The trial became one of the most closely followed legal cases involving a former footballer, not only because of Giggs's fame, but because of the gravity of the charges. After weeks of testimony, the jury failed to reach a verdict, and the trial collapsed without convictions. This outcome left Giggs in a legal limbo, not found guilty, but not cleared in the way many public figures hope for. Initially, prosecutors planned a retrial. However, in 2023, the Crown Prosecution Service formally dropped the case, citing the unwillingness of the complainant to endure another trial and concluding that there was no longer a realistic prospect of conviction. Legally, the matter ended there. Giggs was not convicted of any offense, and under the law, he is entitled to maintain his innocence. Yet the closure of the case did little to restore his standing. The allegations, aired in detail and never fully resolved in the public mind, had already done lasting damage. The fallout was swift and tangible. Giggs stepped away from his role as Wales manager while the case was ongoing and ultimately did not return. Sponsorships, media roles, and public appearances dried up. Football institutions distanced themselves quietly but decisively. Perhaps most symbolically, despite being one of the most decorated players in Premier League history, Giggs was later excluded from consideration for the Premier League Hall of Fame. The omission sparked debate, with supporters arguing that his football achievements were unmatched, while critics insisted that personal conduct could not be separated from public honor. Even his own brother publicly criticized the football authorities, reigniting discussion about Giggs's past behavior and family betrayals. What makes the Giggs story particularly unsettling is not a single catastrophic mistake, but the accumulation of repeated, well-documented controversies. Infidelity acknowledged by Giggs himself, a deeply damaging family betrayal, serious criminal charges involving domestic abuse and coercive control, graphic courtroom allegations that remain part of the public record even though the case was dropped. Each incident stripped away another layer of the carefully constructed legend. Ryan Giggs remains one of the greatest footballers Britain has ever produced. That fact is undeniable. But his post-playing life has become a case study in how private behavior can unravel public legacy. The honors, medals, and records still exist, but they now sit alongside a reputation marked by scandal, controversy, and unresolved questions about character. For many fans, the Giggs story is no longer just about brilliance on the wing at Old Trafford. It is about the uncomfortable truth that sporting greatness does not immunize anyone from scrutiny, accountability, or the consequences of their actions.